With Halloween just a few months away, and camping season also, we thought we would share a few stories we found on the internet. After watching, let us know if you're ready to go camping. When the username Dr. Jim Danger was 18, him and some friends took a road trip to the National Forest near Tallahassee, Florida. Their goal was to get away from people, so they found themselves driving into the woods. After they set up camp and had a few drinks, the writer and a few friends decided to explore the surrounding forest. They found another trail and started following it, but the further they went, the more apparent it became that someone was living there. Eventually, they came to the campsite of an older man who was living out of his van. His clothes were strung up, coolers were scattered around, and a dog sprawled beside the van. The user and his friends tried to back out without being seen, but the man caught sight of them and called them over. He asked them friendly questions and offered up some places that they could check out in the park. After about 10 minutes of talking, they returned to their own campsite. The man was a little strange, but seemed perfectly harmless. But fast forward about 2 months, his friends called him and told him to turn on the TV. There, on the screen, was the man they met in the woods that night, on trial for 4 murders. When username Clockwork2112 was a kid, they went hiking along a coastal national forest with their friend and his dad. They dropped into an overgrown side of the main trail and noticed an awful stench that they assumed was a dead animal. They then spotted a cardboard sign leaning against a pile of trash at the base of a tree. The sign read, "Come and find me," with an arrow pointing further down the overgrown trail. The smell had gotten worse the closer they had gotten to the sign. They went back up to the main trail and told their friend and his dad what they'd seen. When they got back to town, the dad called the local sheriff. They never found out what was down the overgrown trail, but they can't help but imagine that it was a corpse, or maybe a bunch of dead animals. Screen name Ryloto was camping in Big Sur, California with one of his best friends one weekend. They almost had the entire site to themselves and chose a campsite about a half a mile from the ocean in a large open field surrounded by a forest. They spent the evening sitting around the campfire telling stories. Afterwards, the two climbed into their tent and fell asleep. Around 1 a.m, something startled their dog. She's usually very calm and used to being in the woods, but this time she was yanking at her leash, desperately trying to get away. She pulled so hard that her harness snapped, and she bolted across the field. The Reddit user chased her into the woods, where she eventually found her curled up in a random clearing. They picked her up and carried her back to the campsite. They all hid inside the tent, but the dog refused to lay down with her people. Her ears were up, and she was staring intensely at the tent wall. At this point, the writer and their friend were also on edge. The dog's behavior didn't make sense. Then they heard the cackling, a high-pitched laughter coming from the outside their tent. They were so scared they could hardly breathe. Then screams followed the laughing. They thought it could have been wolves or a coyote killing their prey, but it sounded far too human. Their car was parked too far away for them to bolt for it, so they just listened to the freakish laughter until it faded away. Username 1MacabraeCat went camping at a summer program when he was 16. When he went to bed one night, the group stayed awake, chatting in their tent, when they suddenly started to hear heavy breathing nearby. He described the noise sounding like someone had just been sprinting and stopped right outside their tent. Trying to stay calm, he ignores it and keeps chatting. Then they heard, "Please, help me." Everyone in the tent went silent. They heard the questions again. At this point, they were all freaked out. Then one of the braver kids turned on a flashlight and opened the inner flap to see out. They saw a pair of bare, scabbed, and pale legs standing there. It seemed as though the guy had been walking nude through the woods for a while. The man asked for help again, and the boy who opened the tent told the man to keep walking down the trail, and he would find a ranger soon. The man responded, "No, no rangers. They keep me here." One of the camp chaperones came out and asked the man a series of questions. The old man didn't answer. Instead, he started sobbing and ran into the woods. Are you ready to go camping? Where are you?